How much money do you make compared to your boss? In recent months, there have been numerous stories highlighting the sometimes enormous gap between executives and workers on the line, and other stories about workers laid off, considered disposable in a sluggish economy. Well, tonight, Bob Brown introduces us to a couple of extremely successful businessmen who take a totally different approach. They spread the wealth, and they take care of their employees and the community. In fact, at Ben&Jerry's Ice Cream, everybody's troubles just seem to melt away.
Amid the thaw of a Vermont spring, we're about to enter the world of a company that links the pay of the highest executive to the lowest worker. An environmentally sound, politically correct corporation that nevertheless makes profits a robber baron would envy. If it weren't for the butterfat, it would be hard to find anything that sounds sinful about Ben&Jerry's. Constant streams of children flow up and down the slanted walkway into this ice cream factory near the woods. Young Hansels and Gretels, who instead of being incarcerated by a wicked witch, are indoctrinated as they stuff themselves by signs of the social mission that defines what Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, two guys who grew up in the 60s, want their company to stand for.
Our social mission here is central to all the stuff we do, so that we try to have a social component that's involved in, pretty much all the activities of the company.
And then we have our two-part bottom line that measures both things. How much do we benefit the community, and how much money do we make?
Even though they don't look the part, they are shrewd businessmen who've managed to live up to both their ideals and their stockholders. They make what's called super premium ice cream, with high butterfat content and less air in the mixture. Ben&Jerry's has 38% of that super premium market, second only to Pillsbury's Häagen-Dazs, and well ahead of Kraft Foods' Fruzen Glace. They seem to have an uncanny instinct for offbeat concoctions that boost sales. Their most recent flavor, chocolate chip cookie dough, is now their most successful. And sensitive to diet research that shows fat is bad, they have now gone full throttle into frozen yogurt products. The bottom line? This year, Ben&Jerry's will for the first time top the $100 million mark in sales, double the sales figure of only 4 years ago. Marie DeLucia follows franchised industries as a senior vice president of Tucker Anthony.
Today, as we enter the 90s, coming out of a sort of greed of the 80s, I believe some investors are going to be willing to pay maybe an even higher premium for companies like Ben&Jerry's that pay attention to the bottom line for their employees and for their shareholders, but also for others.
How do they mix ice cream with a social mission? Example, they buy their main ingredient, the milk, from a Vermont dairy cooperative because they believe in supporting small farms. Example, these brownies going into Ben&Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie ice cream come from the Grayston Bakery in Yonkers, which reinvests its profits into providing jobs and training for the homeless. Example, Ben&Jerry's hires its own workers from every spectrum of the community. The company provides this on-site child care center at its Waterbury plant, which employs around 350 people. And as for the stockholders, well, a Ben&Jerry's stockholder meeting is something to behold.
It was like nothing that I had ever seen before. I went to the one last year in late June, and it was part of a festival weekend that Ben&Jerry's was hosting. It was under a tent. The chairman of the board and many of the executives were in Bermuda shorts and T-shirts.
We shall now proceed with voting on the election of directors, which is item 1 on the notice of the meeting.
Ben sings the opening, all of the legalese.
You won't find many people complaining about that irreverence.
Second that emotion.
Last year, the value of Ben&Jerry's stock increased 150%, and the company reported record earnings of $3.7 million. These people, on the other hand, probably couldn't care less about how the stock performs. They're just here to see how the ice cream is made.
You put in 400 pounds of the finest Dutch chocolate into that blender.
Last year, 250,000 people made this pilgrimage to Ben & Jerry's main ice cream factory in Waterbury, Vermont. It is the most popular tourist attraction in the state.
It's my favorite. Wow, is that banana?
If there's one area where Ben & Jerry's is strictly business, it is in an obsession with quality control. It's a daily routine here in the factory to slice open pints of ice cream to make sure the ingredients and chunky things, for which Ben & Jerry are most famous, are distributed evenly.
I'm looking for cherry chunks.
When he is testing the quality of the products, Ben, as chairman of the board, tends to lose his sense of humor. We found him in his office cutting up some new frozen yogurt pops with cherries in them. He was laughing, but he was not happy.
There's several little bits of cherries in here, but there's no real cherry chunks. And what we talk about this in the industry is that we have a loss of fruit identity. And, you know, you don't really get like a burst of cherry flavor out of a little fleck like that, do you?
I guess
no. I mean, useless.
Ben sent the pops right back to the Research and Development Division, which 6 weeks later was still trying to figure out how to make the chunks larger.
As Jerry and I have always said, it's easy to make it lousy, it's hard to make it right.
We've got
Okay, just put it on the top of the middle.
Let's make it 21 scoops instead of 20. What do you think?
Okay.
While Ben has been most involved in corporate affairs, Jerry is a kind of company cheerleader. The guy who goes out on the road to talk with distributors and franchise owners.
Oh my
Ben & Jerry's has virtually no national TV advertising budget. The company likes to go one-on-one with the customers.
We tend to spend our money, you know, marketing the ice cream, but more through promotions or community events or things that tend to be more fun.
You know, we have these scoop trucks that drive around different cities in the country and just give out free samples all day, every day there.
You know what? This was basically our marketing planner that.
Because of the enormous growth that has occurred over the last 10 years, Ben & Jerry have turned over most of the responsibility for daily business operations to a senior management team that also stays aligned with the values on which the company was founded. But anyone who takes a managerial job here has to know one thing up front. The highest paid executive at Ben & Jerry's can earn no more than 7 times the salary of the lowest paid worker.
What they do is who we are, is what we make. And how can you possibly justify somebody making $1 million or more a year when their line-level worker can't make enough to afford a house?
The issue is one that's been prominent lately because of the inflated salaries of corporate chief executives who, according to recent statistics, take home on average 70 times more than their lowest paid workers. What the 7-to-1 ratio means here is that no executive at Ben & Jerry's is currently earning more than $100,000 a year.
And that's something that's important to you and that you do think about.
If they want to make more, we have to get a raise too, so they can make more.
It makes you feel valued, you know, just because my range is, you know, not way at the top. I'm still important, even though I'm in there. And I'm treated like, you know, I'm important.
Do these guys do anything wrong? As a matter of fact, yes. In 1990, Ben & Jerry's was nailed with more than $30,000 in fines for creating excessive levels of ice cream waste around their plant.
And all of these plants are being grown from ice cream waste.
They did build this experimental greenhouse overlooking the plant to recycle a small percentage of the waste, but they have a long way to go.
Incoming! Incoming!
And they've even agreed in advance to pay more fines if they violate waste limits. They do try. Another of their solutions for dealing with this slop was much less traditional. They found out that ice cream waste is okay for pigs to eat. The problem was there were no pig farmers in the area. So Ben & Jerry set up a farmer with his own herd of swine, and voila. As their company song points out, a Ben & Jerry's franchise is a Ben & Jerry's franchise, no matter where you find it.
There ain't no Hagen, there ain't no Don, there ain't no Hoosier, there ain't no Blonde, there ain't nobody named Steve at Steve.
But there's 2 real guys at Ben & Jerry's.
Do what you do, do, bop, do.
We believe believe that we've come upon a way of doing business that integrates the concerns of the community with making a profit. Take a look. If you like what you see, do it. If you don't, don't.
Chocolate chip cookie dough. Why didn't you bring back samples for your friends?
You need to have an oxygen mask standing by if you try a whole pint.
How do they still manage to do business when more and more people want low-fat or non-fat frozen desserts?
Well, they've gone heavily into frozen yogurt products now. That's one of their biggest pushes. They both publicly consume pints and pints of frozen yogurt. It has, they say, about 1/8 the calorie of that super premium ice cream. That's not to say it doesn't still have a lot of calories.
Yeah. It's so strange that they went to Vermont. How did they get started in the first place?
There were two
Why
guys
would you go to the coldest place?
They'd known each other since the 7th grade. They'd tried a series of odd jobs. Neither one of them really made it. So they said, well, let's open a homemade ice cream shop. They looked for college towns with no homemade ice cream stores, and the only one they could find was in Vermont, which is cold most of the year. So they went to a converted gas station. They were opened an ice cream store, and the rest is history.
Well, they picked a beautiful state, and it shows if you make a good product, they'll even eat it where it's cold. Next time, big samples.
I've gained a pound and a half just listening to you guys.
We'll be right back.
Second year in a row, the Lady Gators would have a chance to finish on top. And like they have all season, Florida left all they had on the court and now have a national championship and unbeaten record to show for it. Jim Abbott shows us how the ladies finished the job that was left undone in last year's final.
The Gators have been waiting for 4 years to hoist the national championship trophy again. Last year it slipped away. This year it is firmly in their grasp.
There was so much dedication on their part and so much commitment on their part after last year that I think that all the work that they put into it, it was wonderful to see it happen.
To make it happen, the top-ranked Gators had to knock off number 2 Stanford, a team they had never beaten before in 4 tries at the NCAAs. With the score tied 2-2, Lisa Pugliese won a 3-setter at number 4, followed by Dawn Booth, a 3-set winner at number 2. And then in doubles, Jill Krabus and Lorianne Friedman added the knockout blow with a 6-2, 7-6 match-clinching win.
It was kind of exciting for us to win the match, but I mean, I don't think we were actually the deciding factor because everyone that won the matches got us to that point. We felt that we could pull it through, and we just kept saying 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time, and that really helped us a lot.
And with that win at number 3 doubles, the Gators washed away all the bitterness of last year's loss and replaced it with this year's sweet taste of victory.
Oh, it's awesome, especially from last year, just to have this complete turnaround, and just so disappointing last year to come back and win it. It's awesome. It's awesome.
The Gators are certain to be number 1 when next season begins, and probably the favorite for next season's championship, with the top recruiting class in the nation coming in. But for now, they are the NCAA champs. In Tallahassee, Jim Abbott, TV 20 Sports.
Before today's match, the Gators were winless in 3 attempts against the Cardinal in finals, and with the loss, Stanford has lost 3 in 3 of their last 5 finals. Once again, Lady Gators, champions of women's tennis.
A South Carolina institution steeped in all the traditions of the military. But for many Americans, the tradition that's put the Citadel on the map is its refusal to admit women. 48 Hours recently took an unprecedented behind-the-scenes look at life on the campus, where freshmen called knobs still wait on upperclassmen, where alumni still salute the school's rich history, and everyone shares a sense of tradition under fire.
Growing up, my dad used to bring me to the Citadel a lot for homecoming events and football games and everything.
For James Bland Millett III, the Citadel is more than just familiar ground, it is hallowed ground.
I sort of grew up wanting to go to the Citadel. So when I did, it was just sort of like almost fulfilling a dream, sort of.
The days of cleaning up his room,
supposed to clean our rooms every day,
polishing up his brass,
this is an expert rifle badge,
and polishing off the knobs.
Dessert?
What else, sir? Sir, no, excuse, sir.
You don't know if there's any dessert.
Are coming to an end.
I am kind of looking forward to letting my hair do other things.
Bland Millette is about to graduate.
Josh, you can take me out of the citadel, but you probably won't be able to take the citadel out of me. I have to shave in the morning. I have to get up at a certain time. I have responsibilities to keep a uniform neat and clean. Seniors are allowed to have a civilian coat and tie, summer leave, dress whites, dress grays. I can imagine what I would have been like if I went to a normal school. Smooth out any wrinkles in the bed.
What would you have been like?
Like a bird let out of a cage. I'd have just gone wild, probably. If I'd have gotten out into a real school, I would have just been partying all over the place. Imagine, move back. I feel like I'm a part of something that has been here forever. Part of something big, important, that feeling of belonging.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We all can identify with that long tradition, that long gray line. It was done the same way back when the citadel first started, and it will be done years from now.
But that might not be true, and Bland Millette knows the reason very well. Shannon Faulkner may be gone, but the lawsuit to admit women here is not. The only difference is there is a new name on it. It's Nancy Millette, Bland's younger sister.
So when you found out, I mean, what did you think?
I was kind of shocked. I'll admit I was kind of hurt, kind of confused, didn't know what to think. I have my family on one side of me going one way. I have the core, which I'm loyal to, going another way.
Does your family back your sister or the Citadel?
My sister.
I understand that they definitely do not want me there.
What did you tell her to expect?
I told her to think about what her predecessor went through.
Shannon Faulkner.
I understand that she's had a lot of pressure, and I'm just grateful that she opened the door for other females to attend the Citadel.
Nancy Millette has attended other military schools.
What if it turns out that she is the first female cadet to successfully complete 4 years at the Citadel?
Well, I guess it goes like this. I will hold my breath just to see what happens. The big thing is the Citadel being the same. The traditions, the aura, the mood, the atmosphere. And I just wonder about that. I mean, I can't help but wonder about that.
Bland Millette is about to take part in that tradition for the last time.
Last parade, last formation, last everything, really.
A final parade. And the graduation ceremony itself, with his family, including Nancy, watching. Everybody here knows this may be one of the last graduations of its kind.
People don't throw rocks at an apple tree unless the apple tree is loaded with apples.
And everybody knows why.
The basic values of this institution will continue to receive assault from those who are not knowledgeable about what it is that we're about.
You know, I have an opinion that qualified young women should be admitted to the Citadel, and some alumni agree with me and some do not.
James Bland Millette III, who will receive his diploma from his father.
Fathers who have graduated here hand their sons their diplomas.
Think you'll do this again?
Richard,
you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Would you like to do this again?
Probably.
You could make a little history here, sir.
Well, maybe I could, but I'm not here to make history.
What are you here for?
I'm here to try to help the Citadel with its development, and I'm proud to be a Citadel graduate, and very proud that my son is a Citadel graduate.
Think about this possibility. Same traditions, same tough standards, same drill.
Look at there it is.
Only men and women instead of just men.
I don't know.
New traditions.
I don't know.
Possible?
I don't know.
Alumni, class of 1996, this concludes the ceremony.
It's another day in the demanding life
Good morning, sir.
of Shane Donahue. A freshman,
Sir, bird sales fall, sir.
a knob,
The name originated from having our head shaved upon reporting here at the Citadel. As a knob, you're basically the bottom of the ladder. Knobs are required to walk 120 paces per minute. We have to keep our eyes straight forward, can't look around or speak at all unless spoken to. Everywhere we go, our corners have to be squared. So anywhere in the battalion or in the mess hall, you're bracing. Basically, you just roll your shoulders back, tuck your arms in, get your chin in.
And you gotta just sit in there. And you can't talk when you're like that.
You can talk a little, but it's usually...
Fear of God, respect for mankind.
You're always getting inspected. They'll check your shirt, your pants, make sure your shoes are shined.
Right. Shane believes this is just the kind of training he needs to prepare for the Marines. The Citadel is easy to get into, harder to survive.
Remember, the League of Nations, very weak at that time.
The school accepts 70% of the young men who apply. But about a third drop out by their senior year.
Adios, profesora.
The cost? Freshmen like Shane pay nearly $15,000 a year for the privilege of living like this.
1, 2, echo!
No matter what kind of economic background you came from, what race you are, what social status you are, you start off at the bottom, and, where you go from there is up to you.
Every day, all day, Knobs run a gauntlet of tests.
Hurry up. You better beat the adjacent mess.
Even during mealtime.
Give me a napkin.
When it's the Knobs' job to wait on upperclassmen.
We did it, so they're gonna do it. It builds character.
You take being a knob serious. You take it real serious.
Very seriously. It means a lot to me. We're all kind of like brothers here. We've all gone through the same thing, and it kind of bonds us together,
Get up. When you reach Mr. Orange, you're doing push-ups. Go back.
We all kind of feel each other's pain and look out for each other.
Help him. Get his feet.
Let's go, Marty. Go. Pull. Come on, one more. You learn to dig deeper than you've ever had to dig before.
Ready? Exercise. 1, 2, 3.
Anybody who has the motivation and the determination to come here and, succeed, they can do it.
Knob indoctrination lasts for 1 year. Then it will be Shane's turn to pass on the tradition.
Oh my God. It was right straight. The Citadel is definitely not for everybody. I will say that.
Amen.
The Citadel is proud of the battles it's fought during its 153-year history, beginning with keeping out the Yankees during the Civil War to keeping out women today. But ironically, the cadets who may be working hardest to keep the Citadel all male happen to be all female.
6:30 in the morning, nobody really wants to be lifting weights. We wanted something unique because we're unique. We're the first class. We are taking a stand. We're the pioneer of women.
19-year-old Rachel Kennedy is one of the first to enlist in what South Carolina is calling the alternative to the Citadel.
I think the military is kind of neat because you have order and discipline. Everybody looks good in a uniform. Forward, march.
At the same time Shannon Faulkner entered the Citadel, South Carolina pulled together a program designed just for women to give them military training and a degree.
Even though I feel like, yes, women should be at the Citadel, I also feel like everybody should have the right to make the choice about single-gender education.
So you're torn here, aren't you?
I am.
There's a side of you that thinks women should be at the Citadel, and you're part of this program that helps keep women out of the program.
Yes.
The program called SKILL, the South Carolina Institute for Leadership, is run by Converse College. It's supposed to give women an experience and education that's comparable to the Citadel. Is this what a dorm room looks like at the Citadel?
No.
What about posters on the wall?
No posters on the wall.
Do those knobs at the Citadel have the microwave and refrigerator?
No. Nobody at the Citadel has that, not even a senior. I'm the first to admit we're not hurting in any way.
Remember dining at the Citadel? The only thing these cadets have to worry about is the food.
Oh, that's the worst thing. Oh, yuck.
The one thing I noticed is everybody's very nice to each other. There's no abuse. from the ones in command to the ones who aren't.
Right. We just try to support each other a lot. Good job, ladies! We don't yell at each other. We try to help each other as much as we can. We talk things out. We have meetings together, and it's totally different.
What if you did have somebody yelling at you all the time? Let's say the colonel screamed at you all the time.
I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't stay if somebody was yelling at me all the time.
I do love being in an all-female school, and that I wouldn't want anyone to take that away from me.
Cadet Nikki Woodward is 18, too young to remember when the Citadel was not only all male, it was all white. There was a time when the tradition at the Citadel was to keep out black students. So why should the tradition of keeping out women be held?
I think it's a difference between races and gender. I think that's a big difference. There's no difference between a black male and a white male, just like there's no difference between a black female and a white female, but there is a difference between females and males.
It took 5 generations to develop such precision at the Citadel.
Forward, march.
At Converse,
it's taken about 3 weeks for us to build some tradition.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's not easy to start a military program from scratch.
Oh, a wrinkled flag.
That's why National Guard Colonel Diana Obenauer was brought in.
Let's have fun.
Is this program actually equal to the Citadel, or would this be better described as kind of like a ladies' auxiliary?
Oh.
I knew you wouldn't like the question.
I don't like the question. It is certainly not a ladies' auxiliary. Okay, let's lighten up. We aren't doing many things the same. The ROTC classes are the same.
This looks like a Boy Scout thing.
The academic requirements are the same. The living environment might be a little different, but what we are doing is structuring it so that the outcomes, hopefully, will be the same.
Colonel Obenauer insists that a skilled cadet will graduate with all the advantages of a Citadel cadet. Some of the most powerful people in this state.
Right.
Males who run this state, run large institutions and corporations, went to the Citadel. The women who graduate from the Converse aren't going to have those contacts.
Well, many of them do. As you know, the governor's wife is a Converse graduate.
It's not the same as the governor.
That's true.
Is there a side of you that would like to be there too?
I think maybe if I were a few years younger, maybe a freshman in high school again, and women were admitted to the Citadel.
That they were already admitted?
Right. Then I might consider it.
And tonight, Rachel and Nikki are at the Citadel, welcomed the way women have always been welcomed.
Rachel Kennerty.
Rachel.
You know me.
From the skill.
On the arm of a male escort. So you really want to see the Citadel stay the way it is?
I really do.
And what about if it wasn't all male?
I don't think the Citadel would be the Citadel anymore.
Hey! Hey!
It would lose something. It really would lose something.
Hey!
I am qualified to be in the Corps. It was so hard. I am going to be in the Corps. It was hell, and other women will follow me.
Last summer, Shannon Faulkner vowed to lead women where they had never been before.
When I was in those barracks, I was totally alone. It was me against everybody.
But on her first day of training as a Citadel cadet,
all of a sudden my stomach just started spasming, and I couldn't hold anything down.
Faulkner collapsed and spent the rest of the week in the infirmary.
Friday morning came, and I just could not hold anything down. And I finally decided that it was time to go.
It's hard for me to leave because this is something I have worked for so long.
We're all pretty excited.
I'm glad she's out of there.
9 months later,
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Shannon Faulkner.
Faulkner is on the lecture circuit,
And when I left the Citadel, I was not me anymore.
trying to explain what went wrong.
I had a complete mental, emotional breakdown.
You went there 20 pounds overweight.
Yes, I was, but I could do the physical activity.
Yeah, but that's bound to affect you. I mean, you know that. I mean, you knew you were in for the fight of your life.
You're right, I was.
Why wouldn't you go in prepared for that?
I was physically prepared. Emotionally, I didn't realize I wasn't prepared.
Now, for the first time publicly, Faulkner hints there was more to her abrupt departure than she has previously stated.
I'm having a hard time right now dealing with the reason I did have to finally leave. Even my family right now doesn't know exactly why I left because it's that hard for me to talk about.
Can you give me some sense of what it was?
Not right now. It's even though I'm just thinking about it gets me really emotional.
Were you assaulted?
No.
Did someone say something terrible to you while you were there?
That's one of those things that's all in a matter of how you look at it. But it was one of those things that happened before that was brought up while I was there, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Confused? You're not alone. But because Faulkner refuses to say more, what, if anything, happened to her is a mystery.
I like to wear the uniform.
But another cadet who entered the Citadel with her, Chris Land, says she was treated differently than her classmates.
We weren't allowed to talk to her. We weren't really, because they were afraid we might say something bad to her, try and scare her, do things harmful to her and stuff.
So you could talk to other knobs, right?
Well, when we're on our free time.
But you couldn't talk to Shannon Faulkner at all?
No one talked to me. No one talked to me.
Wasn't that isolating?
Yes. That's what they wanted. That was their way of punishing me for doing this to their system.
And when she left...
We were ordered also to clap and to scream and yell.
You were ordered to clap when she quit?
I didn't think that was something that was honorable.
The ones who were sliding around on mattresses and clapping and having a good old time after I left, these are supposed to be the elite of the elite. If these were supposed to be their best, then they have a real disturbed and distorted opinion about what a gentleman is.
The Citadel denies that Faulkner was deliberately isolated or that cadets were ordered to cheer when she left. And Faulkner wasn't the only one to drop out. 40 others also left without any fanfare, including Chris Land.
No regrets, a few memories.
What made you leave?
I was disappointed with the military leadership. I was disappointed with the school. And I realized that I was going to miss out a lot of life.
Land is still training for the military, but at San Francisco State University, about as far away as you can get from the Citadel.
I gave it everything I had, and that's basically what ended up hurting me the most.
Faulkner hopes to earn enough speaking to go to another college and get on with her life.
It takes a lot of power to stand in your convictions to do what you need to do.
But not everyone admires her as the woman who broke a 150-year-old tradition. Some see her as the woman who, in the end, just couldn't take it.
If it meant so much to you, why did you quit?
Why didn't you go back?
Anybody who calls me a failure, you better look the word up, because I am not a failure.
How do you feel about the Citadel now, then?
I still think it's a good school.
How can you still think it's a good school?
I would like to graduate from the Citadel. I would like to go to the Citadel, go back, but at this time I can't.
In the end, though, who really won on this? Didn't they win?
No, because women are going to be at the Citadel. Women will be at the Citadel, and it'll make it a much better school.
Shannon Faulkner's prediction could come true in a few weeks. The United States Supreme Court is expected to rule in a case that could bar state-funded schools like the Citadel from...
Close!
Species number 1, the conqueror.
Have I got your attention now?
Exemplified by Alec Baldwin in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross.
Then you can't close You are
Some workers' brutal boss is, for management and the stockholders, an effective leader.
I don't accept effective. Certainly, if I'm faced with someone who's coercive and can hurt me, I may be obedient. But obedient is very different from loyal.
You think this is abuse, you
They seem to prey on people who show signs of weakness.
You don't like it, leave.
I'm from Texas, and a lot of people would deck this person after he got about 3 sentences in. Why don't workers, why wouldn't a salesman in this circumstance say, I'm better than this, and walk out?
It's very easy to say that, but when there is no job on the horizon, it's very hard to get up and say, hey, I'll tell you where to get off.
They're gonna bounce me out of a job.
So, what can you do?
Learn the triggers, learn the buttons. Prey survive by learning the patterns of predators, and you don't step in the track that they're going to be hunting.
Still ahead, tips on handling another species of brutal boss, the performer.
If you pay attention, there will be a point.
Also coming up.
I don't like to think of myself as anti-boss.
Scott Adams' office.
But I am kind of anti-idiot.
The man with the real line on bad bosses. Plus, going the distance.
For me, it's a dream come true.
With Muhammad Ali.
You could feel the power. I can only call it the Ali magic.
You out, sucker.
This man was more than your ordinary boxer. He was the greatest.
Hostile work environment. Document everything that happened. You need to make the claim within 180 days from the date of incident.
If you are laid back, you are dead meat. My first job, I worked at a company, Self-Esteem Incorporated, where everybody patted everybody on the back and everybody told everybody else everybody was great. Right up till the day they shut the doors in the company, laid everybody off, and bulldozed the walls in the company. Therefore, what we're about is winning. Tough boss respects people. Tough can mean mean and unreasonable, which I don't stand for. Tough can mean honest and straightforward, including discussing things that are problems, which is what I'm about.
Tough talk like that may account for the fact that, by one estimate, more than half of all Americans say they'd like to be their own boss. Now, in a moment, you'll meet someone who is, the creator of Dilbert, cartoonist Scott Adams. But first, another entry from our rogues gallery of bad bosses.
You didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't hear me when I said very important this morning. What good are you? Do you have a brain?
Brutal boss category number 2, the performer.
Those who are performers often belittle you, and that's interesting because they may not feel competent themselves.
And, warns Columbia professor Harvey Hornstein, if you try reasoning with a performer,
I would appreciate it if you didn't yell at me in front of the entire office.
Excuse me, what?
the results can backfire.
Who do you think you are, you snot-faced little punk?
Like in the movie Swimming with Sharks.
Okay? If you were in my toilet bowl, I wouldn't bother flushing it.
How dare you pretend you're my equal?
You see this? This means more to the office than you. And yet, do you hear any complaints when I do this?
These pencils more important. These
More than
pens
10% of the people with whom I spoke reported instances where they had things thrown at them.
I was going to the bathroom.
How to cope? Don't appeal to your boss as an equal.
If he had taken a good reading of his boss, he wouldn't walk in and say, I want to talk to you about how you've treated me. It wasn't going to work.
Still ahead, the manipulator.
It's not going to be a problem, is it, Tess?
What you're now about to witness and what you're going to hear is somebody who's been very much needed in the business community, someone who will bring some humor, some laughter to what we're involved in. Let's all warmly welcome Scott Adams.
You might not have seen Scott Adams before.
How many of you have actually seen a Dilbert cartoon strip?
But have you been to a bookstore or read the funny pages lately?
How many people will think I kind of look like Dilbert?
You've met his cartoon alter ego, Dilbert.
Like, is it 6 o'clock yet? He kind of has that look on his face.
A crudely drawn character without a mouth.
What did you mean when you said all employees are empowered?
Who manages to say everything workers would like to about the bosses running corporate America.
Why do so many bosses do so many stupid things?
Well, there are a lot of reasons for that. Number one, of course, is what I call the Dilbert principle.
The Dilbert principle is Scott's best-selling analysis of what's wrong with big business. He tickled a funny bone and hit a nerve with average workers, especially on the subject of management.
The Dilbert principle. The most ineffective workers are systematically moved to the place where they can do the least damage. Management. That's tongue-in-cheek, of course. Why are you pretending to be interested in our personal lives? It's a management technique to increase your job satisfaction without giving you more money.
This is probably the most Xeroxed cartoon
ever. Why do you think that is?
Nobody really believed that anybody else could be having this experience because it was so unworldly and bizarre. But when it started showing up in the newspaper, they could cut it out, they could send it to their friends and family and say, I swear, I'm not making it up. This stuff happens. It's real.
Scott understands corporate life and its infuriating buzzwords like downsizing and mission statements because he lived in that culture for 17 years.
I was called an applications engineer, and after I'd spent many years sitting in my putrid little cubicle, working for bad bosses and hating my little corporate life, I just decided to try to be irrational for a while. And so I decided to try to be the one person in 10,000 that succeeds as a cartoonist.
You've got dilbert paraphernalia.
I sure do.
Thank you. Hi there.
Somebody already did this one.
My boss gave it to me for Christmas. Are you, as a rule, anti-boss?
He's either enlightened or really clueless. I don't like to think of myself as anti-boss.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Because it's hard to think what the alternative would be. But I am kind of anti-idiot. And I try to be inflexible on that point.
Of course, Scott doesn't have a boss anymore. Scott Adams' office. He runs the Dilbert empire from his home.
Every single thing I do has a very specific value. And that's kind of the model of the future, is that people will work for themselves, have no boss, and therefore no reason to do stupid stuff all day long.
Now that you're on your own, in your own space, is it revenge at all? Revenge of the cubicle man?
Well, it's kind of the revenge of living well. As someone wiser once said, there isn't a day when I don't sit here in the morning and I'll be literally in my pajamas and I'll be drawing my little cartoon mocking the people who have given me such a hard time in the past. And I just say to myself, man, this is pretty good.
Ahead, I was visualizing swinging my fist as hard as I could into his groin.
2.5 years afterwards?
He still remembers.
The claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress.
And she won't forget.
I have to keep fighting. I'm going to keep trying.
And why are these workers smiling?
I've never worked harder.
Overtime pay that you are owed for, contact the Department of Labor.
Yeah, they fear me. You damn right. There is nobody here drowning in sweat. We intimidate them to the extent that they know they have to come in ready for work.
Good morning. Thank you.
There's an elegance, there's a pride, there's a dignity about a working man that takes an interest in what he does. Show your watch, huh? I force him to give it to us, to me, to the customers, to create something of beauty. If they don't want it, out.
Today is important because I don't feel that I really ever got true justice.
We're going to be number one.
Elaine Subi Hurt, who says she was forced out of her job by a boss who made her life hell,
Separate Hurt versus Prudential.
is back in court.
I would still be at Prudential if it wasn't for this man. And think of all the other people that he was doing the same thing to. It just, I couldn't let it happen.
Elaine is asking for a jury trial. She thinks a jury of working people like herself will be most sympathetic to her case. But the man she's suing, Robert Bacigalupi, instead wants a case mediated by the securities industry.
I call it the fox watching the chicken coop.
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court.
A New Jersey court is about to make that decision.
The claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress.
At stake here, in court documents, Elaine has asked for $3 million in damages.
A psychologist.
I used to be able to get up, go to work, have a good day, come home. I now get up and have to take a pill to even start my day. I have to take Prozac in the morning, Pamelar in the afternoon.
He would always say, don't let people get into your head. But that's exactly what he did to everybody that worked under him.
Lee Hammond, another agent of Prudential, says Elaine isn't the only one suffering psychological damage because of their abusive boss. He took early retirement in 1994.
2 weeks ago, I was in my car alone, and in my own mind, I was visualizing a conference with Robert Bacigalupi, being in his office, listening to his condemnation, standing up in front of him, swinging my fist as hard as I could into his groin.
2.5 years afterwards?
At that moment, I said, don't let anybody get into your head. That's the comment that came back to me.
I'm here for my 1 o'clock.
As for Elaine, she regularly sees a psychiatrist and claims that even 6 years after quitting her job, she is still unable to work. But somebody hearing you today will say you don't seem like a woman unable to work or disabled by depression or anxiety.
You can't see depression and anxiety when you're on medication. I don't feel normal inside, and that's what's very hard to explain to someone.
If she was injured, as she claims, then workers' compensation was designed to take care of that very situation.
But there's a reason, says employment lawyer Chris Baraka, that employees like Elaine prefer to go to court. Workers' compensation will only reward a fraction of the money.
What I really want is this type of behavior and this type of boss not to be allowed to go on.
Elaine wants a jury to decide. That is, if she gets a jury.
They deprived Elaine Suby of a jury trial the first time, and now they're doing it again.
The judge has made his decision.
I don't see that there's any difference between a case decided before a jury and a case decided before arbitrators.
Her case will be heard, but by arbitrators, not a jury.
So don't let it get you down.
No, I won't.
Okay, really.
It's a major disappointment for Elaine.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
But if you think she's giving up,
I have to keep fighting. I'm going to keep trying. I want my story told. It shouldn't happen to anyone else, and probably a little bit of revenge, too.
Elaine did get one wish. Robert Bacigalupi is no longer working for Prudential. The company refuses to say why.
There is a third kind of brutal boss, says Professor Harvey Hornstein.
Hi.
A more subtle kind.
There it is, the manipulator.
That's not going to be a problem, is it, Tess?
But these people are smooth. That's what makes the manipulators so successful and so deadly.
Like Sigourney Weaver in Working Girl.
So, Tess, a few ground rules.
The manipulators, being concerned as they are with am I valued, want everyone to value them. So they're nice to you, they're polite.
I have an idea, and you said I could come to you.
Shoot.
This predator takes your idea.
Why don't you leave me your notes? I'll have a look-see.
Pretends to reject it.
But hey, it wasn't out in left field either.
And after that,
they betray you. These are the ones who typically will steal your ideas, never giving you credit.
Hornstein says manipulators fear they'll be less valued if their assistants get the limelight. When in fact, the opposite should be true.
I'm a better manager, I'm a better boss, because I can develop people. And I can recognize good ideas.
Let me have your attention for a moment.
And he blames all three categories of abusive bosses on company brass more concerned about the bottom line than a top-notch workforce.
Gotta be a little more thick-skinned, you gotta be a man to do this job!
Of course, not every boss is a bad boss, which brings us to Herb Kelleher, taking his workers to new heights. Here's Richard Schlesinger.
Thanks for being aboard. How you doing? Good to see you, sir. Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for making us successful.
What kind of boss gets employees to say things like this?
Oh, it's my honey.
Good to see you.
Herb Kelleher is the most exceptional man I've ever known, and that's the way that everyone at Southwest feels about him. He is just the best-hearted, just everyone feels like family with him.
Pleasure to see you. Thanks for making me look good.
Herb Kelleher.
Thanks for being aboard. Thanks for flying Southwest.
CEO of Southwest Airlines.
You want to frisk me?
Yeah. Does it all for love.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you too.
And money.
I appreciate your flying us. I love customers.
This is 864.
In an industry that can be mean and nasty, Kelleher can be wild and crazy.
Halloween is what? Is this a company holiday? Yeah. Really, you know, it's just for everybody to have an opportunity to relax and have some fun.
But it's still a work day. Most of these people are on the clock. It's all part of the method to his madness.
I think that business ought to be fun. I think it ought to be entertaining. And so we try to create an environment where our people can be happy, can enjoy themselves. That reduces stress.
Do you think you guys work harder here?
Oh, definitely. I've never worked harder.
Work hard and play hard.
Thank you very much.
In fact, productivity of Southwest employees is the envy of the industry.
Once again, this is a completely full flight.
The success of business really starts with your people.
Let me take this, sweetie.
If they're happy in what they're doing, then they serve the customers well.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's off and brakes are set. Cargo doors are checked.
In 25 years, Southwest has grown from a small regional airline
I hate to tell you, but we gotta go. Bye-bye.
to the 5th largest in the country. And word of Kelleher's success has spread.
How are you? Welcome to Southwest Airlines. Thank you.
Managers from all over the world have come to Southwest headquarters to study his system.
People are so efficient, effective, positive, motivated.
You heard that all the way at Austrian Airlines.
Yes, absolutely.
A happy employee is what? A productive employee. That's why we do it, guys.
Taking care of business, it's all right. Taking care of business and working overtime.
From time to time, Southwest employees have paid back Herb Kelleher's warm and fuzzy ways with cold, hard cash. Southwest was making money when other airlines were losing billions of dollars every year. And when the Gulf War forced up the price of jet fuel, the employees gave back a percentage of their paychecks to help keep the company profitable.
Do I have any mayonnaise on my nose?
It's the monthly company lunch,
And it's great to be a part of this team. Thanks so much for having me.
where they'll let anyone speak. And so since I've got, 400 people here to ask, what is it about this place that makes you all feel so good about it and work so hard? Forget that the boss is here. Yes, ma'am.
We all feel like owners. We own this company through profit sharing, through some of the stock options.
They talk about company business and personal business.
And this past summer, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. When I come in here and I see people, they'll stop, they'll ask, how's your dad doing? How are you doing? You know, let us know if there's something that we can do for you. And that means more to me than getting a check from Southwest. That means more to me than anything in the world.
It's much more than just an ordinary business opportunity for me, and I think most of our people visualize it that way as well.
How many of you would work extra hours for no pay for Herb Kelleher? For no pay. See, I'd think that a guy like you, head of a very successful airline, would think, you know what these people are really doing is making a ton of money for me and my stockholders.
Oh, no.
I would think that. I think a lot of people would think that.
Yeah, well, they might, but they'd be wrong.
So who could find anything wrong with happy employees working hard? This man could. Are you arguing that it's bad to work hard? He's next. And also ahead. You would
Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the short flight with us here at Southwest.
Among the employees at Southwest Airlines, the formula for success is simple. High spirits equal high profits. But at least one business professor is now asking about a possible hidden cost.
There are individuals in the organization who have made the organization their family, their home, as well as their workplace and their community, and that's what concerns me.
Are you arguing that it's bad to work hard?
Excesses are bad. We're at a particular time in society where there's too much value attached to work.
Rapid Rewards, this is Darren.
And no one values his work life more than Darren Sanders.
Some of my friends think I'm a little crazy for wanting to work for a company so much.
In fact, it can be hard to tell the difference between Darren's business life and his personal life. It's easy to tell where you work.
Exactly.
He doesn't just work for the company, he lives the company.
These are flight schedules. These are bag tags I've been saving over the years. And these are pictures when, around the first time when I flew, when I was in 4th grade, pictures I drew of Southwest airplanes. How many people do you know would put a picture of their CEO in, their room at their house?
Is this company too important to some people?
You certainly want your company to be important to people. But that doesn't mean that they don't have their outside, private, personal lives.
We are going to give you a chance to do something that we value highly at Southwest Airlines.
Remember all those visiting executives?
And that is called coloring outside the lines.
They thought they were coming to study.
We're going to do a little dance.
But they are about to learn that there's profit in playfulness.
We're going to do the Macarena.
We have at least learned that Southwest focus on their staff. That if they are happy, it is transferred to their customers.
So you're a happy man, generally?
I'm a happy man, not just generally, but specifically and all the time, every day, every minute of every day.
Well, what's not to be happy about?
So, what if you're not as happy with your boss as the Southwest people are with theirs? If you've got a discrimination complaint based on age, sex, or race, there are laws to protect you. But there's no federal law to keep a boss from being just plain abusive. You'll need a good lawyer. In any case, document your complaint, and you'll want some allies on the job to back you up. There are also those two time-honored words, I quit. Now, you're about to meet a man who had good reason to quit years ago. Fortunately for all of us, he didn't. Harold Dow has the story complete with a Muhammad Ali you've never seen before.